He's a billionaire. He's never held political office, and he wants to be your president. Today, we are talking to Tom Steyer. I'm Brittany Shepherd, and this is Hot Mic. Welcome to Hot Mic. I am Brittany Shepherd, a national politics reporter for Yahoo News. And here's why we're here today. Young first-time voters are often forgotten, but hold significant voting power. According to Pew, millennials and Generation Z combined will be the country's largest voting segment this year. That's 37% of all voters. Put another way, out of every 10 eligible voters, one of them belongs to Gen Z. And for the olds in the room, that's kids 18 to 23, okay? And here's the takeaway. Their influence has inspired a new age of political advocacy. So that's where I come in, to ask these candidates questions that young people are asking and pundits, well, they're not. Today, I want to know where Tom Steyer stands on the important issues to young voters. He's made a name for himself as the pro-impeachment, pro-young person, and pro-throwing his money around candidate. And for all of you first-time voters watching on Yahoo News, Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube, you can get in on the action too. Using the hashtag HotMic2020, tell us what you want to ask Tom Steyer, and your question could make it live on air. And now, please welcome to the stage Democratic presidential candidate, Tom Steyer. Hi, Tom. Nice to see you. See you're wearing the tie. Quiet morning for you, right, Tom?
I wouldn't go quite that far.
Oh, well. Well, if you guys didn't see this morning, Donald Trump tweeted about you, Tom, and I'm going to read it. I have it written right here on this first card, and here's what he said about you. All right? He said, and these are his words, Steyer is a major loser. This is the second time with Bernie. Before we even get into it, do you have a response to Donald Trump?
I think I basically tweeted back at him to remind him that actually he's the one who's been impeached and is on trial. So maybe he should be paying a little more attention to that.
And not you. Well, doesn't it hurt? We called you a loser. That's not very nice.
Let me say this. I don't listen to what Donald Trump has to say. And in fact, I think he's obviously scared. He only reacts out of panic and fear. And so as long as he's tweeting at me, that means he's scared of me. So as far as I'm concerned, bring it on, Donald.
Well, I think that Bernie bit is really interesting, and I think for some of the folks in the audience and folks watching online who might not know, a couple clips over the weekend and last week went like a little viral. You had went up to Bernie and Liz at the debate, and then at the Dome in South Carolina, you were like dancing next to Bernie. You went into him, and then some people are saying that he was brushing you off, and yada, yada, yada. Like, I'm curious, why do you keep going up to Bernie? What is it about Bernie Sanders?
Actually, when we were at the debate, I said goodnight to everybody who was on that stage.
Right.
I went up to everybody, including Bernie and Elizabeth, to say, nice to have seen you. Mm-hmm. See you later. And when we were down in South Carolina, we happened to be seated next to each other on the stage. So I like Bernie. I'm polite to him as I would be to anybody, but I do like him, and I just happened to get between him and Elizabeth at a time when they're having a little bit of a fraught moment.
Well, that's an understatement. But I mean, yes, sure, you were sitting next to them, but you did tweet yesterday that you liked Bernie. You were kind of wading into remarks that Hillary Clinton had made. It was published in The Hollywood Reporter. And basically she said, like, no one in DC likes Bernie. And I know that you were a supporter of Hillary back in the day, so I was curious, when you saw that quote, when you saw that article, like, what was going through your mind?
Well, let me say this, Brittany. I was running Next Gen America, one of the largest grassroots organizations in the country in 2016 when they were in the primaries against each other. And neither Next Gen nor I ever endorsed either of them. I supported Hillary once she became the candidate enthusiastically.
Sure.
And obviously was disappointed that she didn't win. But actually, I do like Bernie. And I thought, I don't think this is the time that people should be sniping at each other within the Democratic Party about personalities, about wine caves, or old videos, or private conversations that took place over a year ago. I think this is the time when we need to get together and beat Donald Trump. And so that's what I'm trying to focus on.
So just to make sense, I'm understanding what you're saying, that kind of sniping, so to speak, can be distracting. That can maybe hand Republicans a win. Is that how you see it?
Well, I just don't think, look, Can we differ on policy and draw distinctions? Sure we can. I do that all the time. I mean, I tell people all the time, I'm the only person who will make climate their #1 priority. But I don't think this is the time for personal attacks.
Well, it's an election, you know? That happens during presidential elections. People say you're a loser or that you're not cool. Right? You know, I mean, that's been happening since the beginning of time, at least in American political history, you know? But do you think that this is showing that there's maybe too much infighting with the Democrats right now?
I think as Democrats, we should be drawing distinctions. We should be competitive as heck. I'm competitive as heck. Look, I think we need to beat Donald Trump. I know he's going to run on the economy. He can say as much he can tweet as much as he wants. He's running on the economy, listen to every speech. I'll take him on the economy and beat him. I actually did build a business. I have the experience and the expertise to go toe-to-toe with him on the stage and take him down. But the real question is, as Democrats, I'll say that. I'll say I have different experience. I can talk about the economy in a different way from someone who's a career politician. That, to me, is a legitimate thing. But just saying I don't like him, nobody likes him, he raised money in a wine cave, it's kind of, really?
Well,
what? Really?
Well, I mean, for them, it gets traction. It goes viral on social media. Are you saying that you would never go negative during this campaign on someone's personality?
I just don't see why. To me, the question is, why are we better than Trump?
Right.
What are we going to deliver for the American people that's better than Trump? I really believe that is the question in front of us, and I've tried to push for that in every debate. I think the first time I was on the debate stage, and I started later than everybody else by about 6 months, I think the first thing I said was, everybody on this stage is 1,000,000 times better than the incompetent guy in the White House.
Well, that leads me to the next question. You were like one of the first voices about impeachment. And for folks who don't know, in just a couple hours, right down in DC, Senate impeachment hearing is kind of like really gearing up. And Need to Impeach has been out there, I mean, like 3 years ago. I didn't even know who you were.
October 2017.
I was like, this impeachment guy, he's on my TV all the time. And it was very long before impeachment became mainstream for Democrats, where you really out there on the front lines, right? I'm curious, now that it is the mainstream, so much so where even a present vote on impeachment is like a big step in the wrong direction for some Democrats, do you feel that you're owed a little bit of credit for being the person to start this conversation? Do you feel a little bit left out of that conversation?
Well, first of all, I want to say there's some people out there who did an amazing job, like Maxine Waters and Congressman Al Green from Houston, Texas. But what I did was this. I tried to organize and empower the voice of America. Signed the Need to Impeach petition, and they didn't just sign a petition. They also emailed and called and texted their congresspeople saying, do the right thing, hold the most corrupt president in American history to account. And I believe those 8.5 million people made a gigantic difference in terms of dragging Washington, D.C. to thinking that impeachment wasn't about partisanship, it wasn't about political advantage, it was about standing up for the country and the Constitution and the safety of the American people. So I give those 8.5 million people, for what they did, a lot of credit for this happening, because it wouldn't have happened otherwise.
And I want to go to a Twitter question next, all right?
Oh, no.
Oh, no, Twitter. Are you saying that we should log off? I'm always logged on, okay? So this Twitter question says, how does he being you, feel about, and here it is right behind me, how does he feel about Senator Sanders saying billionaires shouldn't exist? All right, Tom, how do you feel?
Well, let me say this. I'm someone who came out for a wealth tax almost 1.5 years ago, long before I was running for president, because I believe the money in this society is unjustly, unfairly, and un-Americanly split up. I'm for repealing all of the tax breaks for rich people and big corporations that the Republicans have put through. I think that they're an attack on the American people and should be changed. I've said I would treat personal investment income the same way that I treat earned income. If we did that, I'd give a 10% tax cut to 95% of Americans. So I am for evening the playing field through taxes. I'm incredibly strong about backing unions, the organized labor movement, and a living wage. Having said that, I would never put an artificial ceiling on the ambitions of Americans. This is the most competitive, ambitious, and hardworking group of people in the world. Why would you say to an 8-year-old, you can go thus far but no farther? My attitude is, we need to make this a much more just society. We need people to be earning much more money. I think the minimum wage, which is $7.25 in the for the country, is absurdly low, unfair, and unjust. But I see no reason to say to the American people, don't dream big dreams. You can dream big dreams up to it. I don't think that's true. I think we should let people go as far as their talent and ambition will take them.
There is a wing of the Progressive Party. I mean, this is not just Bernie who said that billionaires shouldn't exist, and you are a billionaire. You know that. I know that. Now I think we all know that. He's saying that, like, intrinsically, being a billionaire is not correct. How does that make you feel?
Well, let me say this. I started a business from scratch. I never inherited a dime from my parents. I started in one room. I built it up over 3 decades. I walked away from it. I took the giving pledge to give the bulk of my money away to good causes while I'm alive. And so I feel as if I've spent 10 years putting together coalitions of ordinary American citizens like the people sitting here to take on what I think of as unchecked corporate power. And for 10 years, those coalitions have been winning. You know, we've taken on the oil companies about clean energy. I've pushed for 50% clean energy by 2030 in California and outside California, successfully in purple states to show that we can beat these people. I pushed for a $2 pack cigarette tax in California, $3 to $4 billion a year, and gave the money to Medi-Cal. I've been fighting this for 10 years. So do I feel as if I've actually started a company, did it successfully, and have been spending the last 10 years giving back and really fighting the corporations who I think have bought our government? I know I have. So I feel like, look, I want to have a meaningful life on this earth. I fought to stop climate change for over a decade successfully. I want to feel as if my time here has meaning, and that meaning is about leaving the United States of America and the American people better. And so do I feel any guilt about that? No. And do I feel any guilt about succeeding in America? Everybody in America is trying to succeed.
Sure. We're
all trying to succeed. Why should we feel guilty about that? As long as you're giving back to the country that's given us so much, which I believe I'm doing.
Well, on that note, we have a question from the audience, I think also about money and finances. Emily from Columbia, where are you? There's Emily.
Hi, my name's Emily, and I'm a sophomore at Columbia University, majoring in political science. And
Nice
I
to
wanted
meet you.
Nice to meet you too. I wanted to ask how you would respond to claims that you bought your way onto the debate stage at the expense of other candidates.
Well, let me put it to you this way. Emily, the thing that I think every single candidate is going to be judged on, including me, is do you have a message that's different from everybody else, and are you a credible messenger who can be trusted? And I think I'm different in that, one, I'm saying the key issue here is broken government that's been bought by corporations, that we have to take it back for the American people, that I've done that for 10 years, and that I will restructure DC in a way that insiders won't. For instance, I'm for term limits, 12 years for congresspeople and senators. I'm the only person in this race who will say that climate is my #1 priority. I'll do it from the standpoint of environmental justice, which I've always done, going for leadership to the black and brown communities where you can't breathe or drink the tap water. And I'm the person who I believe can take on Mr. Trump on the economy, where he's going to be running, and show that he's a fake business person and a terrible economic president. So I think I have a different message than everybody else, and that is ultimately what wins or loses. So do I think, look, in every single one of these instances, when I've seen something really wrong, like with impeachment, where we had the most corrupt president in American history and people weren't acting on it, I've tried to focus on it, to solve a problem in America, and go after it all the time, including putting in my money. And so that's my history. That's what I'm doing here. If that's the worst thing people can say, that he's put in all his time and effort and money into trying to solve a huge problem for America, I can deal with that.
Thank you.
And I do want to follow up a little bit on Emily's question. I mean, it's true. The DNC has said, this is the threshold. You either hit it or you don't, and you hit it and you made the stage. That makes sense to me. But I do think that there is questions from some Americans where you look at states like South Carolina and Nevada, where you are polling very well, and we'll get to that in a little bit, where you spend a lot of money on ads, staff on the ground. You have really large apparatuses in those 2 states. I'm curious what you say to people who are like, well, he spends a lot of money and he's doing really well. Is that buying the election? Like, what do you say to Americans who are confused or upset?
I'd say, go to South Carolina with me and see what's going on.
But
it is true,
right? Like, a lot of voters are stocky, and then they have their own lives.
Okay, but my point is, then maybe Yahoo should send down a camera crew.
Oh, well, but
because
we're there.
Go down to South Carolina. I just came back from there. We were doing a bus tour. Look, there's something going on in South Carolina where people are responding to what I'm saying. there's something going on in where I'm in second place. There's something, and have a lot of momentum. There's something going on in Nevada where I have a lot of momentum. If you look at the 4 early primary states where I've spent my time, which is Iowa, New Hampshire, Nevada, and South Carolina in order, a poll came out this morning.
Morning consult, right?
Morning consult that said I'm at 15% average and in 3rd place. So I've been going up every single week. When people hear what I have to say, they respond, because I'm spent a long time trying to figure out. I spent a decade trying to figure out, why is this government not working on the basic things that Americans care about? Why do we not have health care as a right? Why are we the only advanced country in the world where everybody doesn't automatically get health care, and why do we pay twice as much as other countries? Why do we have this level of gun violence in this country? No other country has anything like it. Why have we never passed climate legislation in this country, ever? And I thought, I spent a long time pondering it, and it really is broken government, bought by corporations. The government's actually working, but they're working for the corporations, not the American people. So.
But, Jay Inslee, Elizabeth Warren, Bernie Sanders, or other progressives, other even, Beto O'Rourke, centrist Democrats who have been saying very similar policy proposals, but they were not able to crack that ceiling in those states. And especially, let's talk about South Carolina, because it's really interesting to me. What's going on in South Carolina. Joe is known to have a very strong hold. And also, when we say South Carolina, it's really coded for black voters, I think. And so, when it comes to black voters in South Carolina, Joe does hold a stronghold or firewall. And then
I know that's what people say.
That's what many people are saying. And Bernie is also there, but with the Fox News poll, there you were, right in second. And I'm curious, besides just size of the staff, because I've been there, I've been with your teams in South Carolina and Columbia, and besides being able to run ads, what are you doing that other candidates aren't?
Well, I'll tell you
South
something.
Carolina,
First of all,
black voters?
To be clear, I talk about race very explicitly. I believe that in every major policy area in the United States, there's an unspoken area about race. So for instance, I'm saying climate is my #1 priority. I'm also saying our climate plan is called a justice-based climate plan. And it starts in the communities like, say, Denmark, South Carolina, or Flint, Michigan, where people can't drink the water. And we know who lives there, African Americans. We know who lives in the San Joaquin Valley, where a million plus people can't drink the water safely out of the taps. Low-income Latinos. I start with environmental justice. I've always started with environmental justice. So in every single one of the major policy areas, I believe there's an untalked about issue of race. Second of all, I think I'm the only candidate who will say I'm for reparations. I'm for reparations.
You and Marianne.
I didn't know that
Save her
Marianne
soul,
was.
yeah.
But so I'm explicit about that. I say it, and I also say something different, which is this. I believe that policy comes out of narrative.
Right.
If you want to be completely unjust to Latinos in the United States of America and Latino immigrants, call them rapists and murderers. Tell an untrue story about the African American history over the last 401 years in the United States. And I say, I would start a commission on race on day one. We would retell the story of the last 401 years so everybody understands not just the legalized, institutionalized injustice and racism, which is definitely a huge part of this story, but also the contributions of the African American community. And I know people say, okay, including building the country, and that's true. But we're also talking about moral leadership in the United States, not just for generations, not starting with Dr. King, but for centuries. And I think when we tell the true story and we go towards solutions, we're going to come out with real solutions to repair the damage that's been done. So in answer to your question, do I think that I have something different to say about race? I'm much more explicit about it. And I think that I'm dealing with something. I don't think we can be the country that we want to be until we acknowledge the past and move to accept the mistakes this country made that are dramatic and obvious and everybody knows it, and then repair the damage.
Do you think enough black and brown voters are listening? Because it's true, you are, if you are out for reparations, it's really you and no one else.
Well,
right?
Brittany, let me put it to you this way.
Yeah.
I'm on Yahoo News saying it.
Yes, you are.
And I say it to all white audiences. And similarly, I say things about immigration, look, on the stage I said, Mr. Trump is not opposed to immigration. Mr. Trump is opposed to immigration by non-white people. This is code words for race. This is code words for this is our country. Nobody who is not white need apply.
Right.
That's what he's saying. I say that. I mean, look, there's something going on in this country. If you think about what I'm saying in terms of climate, I'm saying we need to rebuild this country and we can create over 4.5 million good-paying union jobs everywhere. That's true. But I'm saying something else too. We need to reinvent America as the moral place we were designed to be, leading the world in terms of freedom and justice and equality. This country has lost its way. Mr. Trump is devastating for the image and self-image of Americans. What does it mean to be an American if we're torturing children at the border? What does that mean? What does it mean to be an American if we don't stand up for what's right around the world when it's America first? It's just about us, 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 us. We don't stand for the right. We don't stand up for democracy. We don't stand up for the rights of people who are being, attacked. What does it mean to be an American? I look at climate as a chance to reinvent America. I look at race, something shameful in our past that we should acknowledge so that we can repair it and be the country we want to be. Look, we have a huge issue in America about who we are. We have, look, to me, the biggest statistic in America is 3 years in a row of declining life expectancy. And 3 of the 4 big reasons are alcoholism, drug addiction, and suicide. Deaths of despair. Okay, what does that mean? That means people don't understand why they're on this planet. They don't have a reason that makes sense to them. And I'm saying we need to reinvent this country as the worldwide moral leader, that we stand for that around the world again. That's what we're strong. That's what makes us strong, not the guns we have.
Right. Well, speaking of reinvention, I think we have a question a little bit about that from Julia, who goes to Barnard. Here she is.
Hi, I'm Julia. I'm a
Good morning.
sophomore at Barnard. Thank you.
Sophomore.
Yeah.
2 sophomores.
So my question is, are more Democrats interested in looking at the Electoral College and possibly getting rid of it because a Republican got elected, or is it because it just doesn't work in this day and age?
Okay, so you're asking me, is it a high-minded desire to repair democracy, or is it a desire to win elections because we know we're always going to win the popular vote?
Yes.
Knowing human nature as I do, I would go with the latter. Look, but it's also true of the former. This is something where I believe, I don't know if you know this, but I have built one of the largest grassroots organizations in the United States. And I'm a gigantic believer that the broadest, most diverse group of people makes the best decisions. And so anything that takes away, in my mind, from one person, one vote, attacks democracy. So I really do feel as if this is something where some people's vote count a great deal and some people's votes don't count at all. And so we have a lot of what I would think of as sort of vestigial parts of an 18th century democracy. I think this was brought in really to protect the slave states, and one of the many things in the Constitution, to protect the slave states. So I don't have a warm feeling in my heart. And I also feel as if it detracts from a straight up democracy, which is really what I believe in, because I think that's the thing that pushes the power to the people, where I believe it should be. And I believe the American people are wiser, more compassionate, and braver than our leaders in Washington, D.C.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Tom.
Okay, Brittany.
We're gonna have some fun. We're gonna get deep.
No.
Yes, we're gonna. Well, I know. We're gonna just like kind of a quick rapid fire. So just kind of don't think, just answer. All right.
Don't think. That's my specialty.
Don't think. Oh, well, there you go. Okay, so I'm just gonna hit you with questions. Just tell me what. Okay, it's like kind of this or that.
Okay.
Frasier or Cheers?
Cheers.
Okay. If you were an emoji, what emoji would you be?
I would be a smile with a wink.
Oh. Guilty pleasure music artist?
Rihanna.
Oh. Washington Post or New York Times?
Washington Post.
What's one weird thing you can do really well?
I'm a pretty good pool player.
Oh. Who plays you in the direct-to-TV movie?
Who played me on Saturday Night Live?
Will Ferrell?
Yeah.
All right, I'll call him.
If I can get him, I was pretty excited about it, to be honest.
What report card grade would you give your campaign so far?
Look, I have been working with the people who've been running my campaign for years because we were doing grassroots around the United States.
Right.
They're people I love. I'd always give them an A. They're great people doing a great job.
They get an A, what are you going to give yourself? We always got a self
You know,
review
let me say
season.
this. I'm not Donald Trump. I don't grade myself.
There we go.
I do my best every day, and that's the best I can do.
If you could bring one presidential candidate who dropped out back into the race, who would you bring?
Look, I have so much respect for my old friend Jay Inslee. He was really fighting on climate. He's worked on it for years for the best reasons. He's a really good man. He's been a very good governor in the state of Washington. Sure. And I have a ton of, I would love to see Jay out there because I think he stands for a lot of stuff that's really fantastic in America. Let me say this too. I also called the DNC, the Democratic National Committee, the day after Kamala Harris dropped to say, we should have a much more diverse, you should change the criteria to being on the debate stage because we're a diverse party. We should have a diverse group of people up there, change that. The DNC doesn't do everything I asked them to do, and they didn't do that. But I also feel as if that's an incredibly important part.
Sure. Are you sick of being compared to Michael Bloomberg?
I'm very different from Michael Bloomberg.
People compare you to him all the time. Are you sick of it or no?
As far as I'm concerned, it gives me a chance to say why I'm different. And one thing I always say about Michael Bloomberg, if you're going to be a rich person who wants to represent the Democratic Party, you have to embrace a wealth tax. Because what's gone on in the United States in terms of inequality of income is unbearable, but we've basically redistributed the money in this society to the rich people at the expense of everybody else. Mm-hmm. And if you want to be a Democrat, embrace a wealth tax. Other than that, I'm fine with Michael Bloomberg.
Good to know. And what was your lowest day on the trail?
Gosh, I don't think I've had one, and let me tell you why, Brittany. Mm-hmm. People always ask, is this a grueling, unpleasant experience? And I say, no. Going out and meeting Americans face to face, which I've done full time for 7 years as a political organizer and now running for president, is the best and most invigorating thing I've ever done. There is no bad day when I get a chance to sit down and look Americans in the eye and listen to them and hear what they're saying and understand better what we need to do. That is always a great day. It is incredibly invigorating and thrilling to me. I love it.
Do you have a favorite Republican?
Well, let me say this. I have done a lot of work with George Shultz, who was he's been, I think, 4 different cabinet positions for several different Republican presidents.
Correct.
George has always been a good partner for me. He's always been a straight up, decent, wonderful guy. And, if I were going to choose a Republican, he's somebody who's been both a friend and a partner to me professionally, and I respect him and like him.
And I think we only have time for one more question. And I want to ask it because I feel like it's not really asked at debates that much. When we talk about healthcare, it's always how can we afford it? How can we afford it? When we talk about military intervention and war, we never really ask candidates about the cost. So I'd like to ask you very plainly, does America spend too much money on war and too much money on military?
Yes. And let me say this. I completely agree with the way that you ask that question, Brittany, because we spend, without even including the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan, over $700 billion a year on defense. That has brought us the unsuccessful war in Iraq and the unsuccessful war in Afghanistan. The federal government spends about $70 billion a year on education. We spent over $1 trillion in Afghanistan, much more than that in Iraq. Think about if we'd spent that money we'd invested that in the futures of the young people in America and in our future. Yes, every dollar that we spend on that is not a dollar we spend on that. I've run budgets as a business person. The idea that this is all free money and somehow it just materializes is not true. Every dollar we spend there, we don't spend there. The fact that we're spending over 10 times as much money on defense as we spend on education, there's an old saying in the Bible, where thy treasure is, there is thy heart also.
Well, you made my mom happy bringing up the Bible, so thanks for doing
that. It's not right,
that.
and I'm telling you, Mr. Trump doesn't understand what prosperity really is in the United States.
So in the Steyer administration, less money for military.
More money for kids. How about universal preschool? The number one statistic that correlates with success in our society, however you measure it, is your reading comprehension level in 2nd and 3rd grade. Guess what? Do we focus on that? Do we understand how important it is to get kids early, to support them, to put them on a path to success? The numbers say we don't.
Well, I think that's where we have to end. We're running out of time. I'm sorry, Tom, but thank you so much. You've been a great guest. Thank you to everyone here. I really appreciate it for joining us today. It's our first time in studio, and just an extra special
Can I say
thank
one
you.
last thing?
Sure.
I want to take on Mr. Trump on the debate stage on the economy. He's a fake. He was a fake business person. He played a business person on reality TV. He's been terrible for the economy. He's going to argue otherwise. I want to go on that stage and take him down.
Well, thank you for your closing statement, too. We'll have everyone do a closing statement. We'll have Andrew Yang pipe in his closing statement. We'll be back soon with more newsmakers and more hot mic moments. Until then, see you all on Twitter.